My name is Kimee Wind-Hummingbird, and I am the Director of Children and Family Services for the Mvskoke Creek Nation. I have worked in Indian child welfare for 21 years now, so it's my life's passion, and I truly can say that I wake up every morning excited about working with our children and our families.
So we recently seen the passing of Tribal Resolution 20141 in an emergency session on July 30th. And that's a tribal resolution that authorizes the principal chief to execute an intergovernmental agreement with the state of Oklahoma regarding jurisdiction over Indian children within the Mvskoke Creek Nation Reservation. Can you talk a little bit about that particular legislation and what it's designed to do?
Of course. So it is a government-to-government agreement put in place for the protection of Indian children on our reservation. It's much like the cross-deputization agreements that Light Horse has in place with other law enforcement agencies. It's for the protection of children.
Okay, so does it kind of allow you guys so the agencies with the state can work with the tribal agencies for child placement? Is that the idea?
Yes, ma'am, and that has been longstanding. We have worked alongside the state of Oklahoma for many years in the placement of our Mvskoke Creek children.
Okay. Does it have any particular mechanisms as it pertains to children who are citizens of the tribe? What does this legislation do? Can you kind of walk us through it, how the process works?
So the Intergovernmental Agreement allows for CFSA, or the Mvskoke Creek Nation, to properly and responsibly handle the influx of cases that are involved with the Indian children, all of the Indian children on our reservation, because our codes speak to protection of all Indian children, just not Mvskoke Creek children. So there is a need for us to build infrastructure internally so that we can support that massive amount of Indian children that we would be working with.
And is this the same piece of legislation that we saw come up a week before, or it was July 21st? We saw TR 134. Are they the same pieces of legislation, basically?
So they're very similar, but there was some language change, some verbiage change, and it's been explained to me that the main modifications were the removal of the first agreement mentioned the 5 civilized tribes, and it wasn't specific to the Mvskoke Creek Nation. So the second agreement that was put forth specifically speaks to the Mvskoke Creek Nation, recognizing that the SCOTUS-McGirt opinion was specific to Mvskoke Creek Nation.
Okay, yeah, kind of just like that, like ownership of this tribe's, code kind of thing.
Yes.
Can you kind of talk about the importance of, TR 141, the one that did pass through it, and it went unanimously, right?
Yes, ma'am, it did. So the importance of having that cooperative agreement with the state of Oklahoma is, I know I've said it multiple times already, is just to ensure the safety of all of the Indian children on our reservation as we can move forward and build internally our programs. We've been planning this since the Murphy opinion came out of the 10th Circuit in 2017. So we've been hoping for a favorable opinion, and we're excited that we did get a favorable opinion.
Yeah. Can you kind of give us an idea about how the relationship between tribal services and the Oklahoma foster services have worked in the past? Can you kind of outline how that functions?
Yes. So our state reunification and permanency team is assigned to each case that the nation intervenes on, and they participate in hearings regarding placement of Indian children or Mvskoke Creek children across the state of Oklahoma. Our 7 caseworkers and 1 program manager are assigned cases in 31 of the 77 counties across the state of Oklahoma. They're responsible for conducting home visits with all of our children in foster care, as well as working closely with all the parties in the case. And they make community resource referrals for the families, such as referrals to our behavioral health or for our WIC or for child care assistance. And then, of course, for the families that live outside of our reservation, we make other tribal service referrals for them too, for other tribes to utilize their services. And then, of course, though, as global pandemic has taken shape across the state of Oklahoma, our program practices were modified to limit the exposure to COVID for our children and our families and our workforce. The safety and protection of our children is our utmost concern right now.
Sure. And can you so that's kind of the broad overview of how the programs have functioned in the past. Is there anything specific that you can kind of pinpoint that's really going to be the changing thing since McGirt's happened? Like, is there any kind of developments that have kind of come along since the SCOTUS opinion?
So right now, our response to children and families hasn't changed since prior to the opinion that was released on July 9th. We still have the same response to our families. We still have the same response to our families. So at this point, nothing has changed.
Okay. Can you kind of talk about like how many children the program or, are affected by these intergovernmental agreements for Mvskoke Creek Nation's area specifically?
Sure. So the number of children in care can fluctuate on a daily basis. The data I received on July 9th was that there were 863 Indian children in DHS custody on our reservation. And of those 863 children, 236 of them were Mvskoke Creek.
Wow. Okay. And can you kind of give us maybe a rundown on the important parts of the legislation that authorize this government agreement? Is there certain parts of it that do specific things that you guys really need to happen?
There are, yes. And first and foremost, I'd like to mention that in my conversations with several of the assistant attorney generals for the Mvskoke Creek Nation, it has been made clear to me that this agreement does not waive the nation's sovereignty or give up any of the nation's jurisdiction. It goes hand in hand with the protection of our children and our protection of our sovereignty and our exclusive jurisdiction of Indian children on our reservation. The document also discusses concurrent jurisdiction or shared jurisdiction, and in no way gives any of the jurisdiction to the state of Oklahoma. So I just wanted to make sure that everyone's clear about that. This is not new to us. This is something that we have worked alongside the state of Oklahoma for many years, and not just the Mvskoke Creek Nation. All the tribes in Oklahoma function this way alongside DHS.
That's what I was going to kind of ask next. Is like, are those kind of have we had those kind of agreements before?
Yes. So the Mvskoke Creek Nation has entered into tribal state agreements with the state of Oklahoma for quite some time. Our tribal codes already address and recognize the need for cooperative agreements. And the code was actually that speaks specifically to cooperative agreements was enacted by NCA 01-126 and approved on August 9th, 2001. And
so a long run.
It has. It's almost 20 years almost.
Yeah. Are there instances in the past which agreements facilitated that maybe a child's placed in the home quickly because of having that agreement? Does it like help expedite in any way that child being placed in, where they need to be?
I don't know that it affects that in that manner. If a child is in imminent danger and in need of emergency foster care, there is never any delay in that child being protected or placed in emergency foster care. Our SRMP team has no hesitation to make recommendations to the court or DHS. And once the nation is a party, we stay involved in that case until permanency is achieved for that child.
Okay. Has there ever been in like any instances and we've had the like agreements in place for a while. This is a new one, kind of in light of the new Supreme Court, opinions. But has there ever been any instances where the tribe was unable to step back into a case and advocate for those kids who were under tribal jurisdiction? Has that ever been an issue before?
No, it hasn't. It has not. Because as I mentioned earlier, whenever an SRMP worker is assigned a case, they have the case through the until permanency is achieved, through the reunification efforts or whatever is the next step for that family. I don't know of a time that our SRMP unit has ever stepped back or stepped out of a case at any time.
Okay. So with the agreements authorized by this legislation, would the tribal systems still be able to step back into those cases, do whatever they need to do, even though they're working with the state under this tribal jurisdiction?
Yes, ma'am. So there should not be a time that we would step out, but we would always stay in and always be right there alongside with DHS.
Okay. I was wondering that, even before the McGirt ruling, what was the role of the tribal child services, and that how has that played in the placement of Indian children?
So as I mentioned before, our SRMP team attends the court hearings and they make recommendations to the judge and the department regarding placement of our children. That's never really been that's something that we've done for quite some time, and I don't imagine that role ever changing. We are always going to be in courtrooms advocating for our children and for our citizens and for what's best for our families.
And like part of, I'm assuming, because I'm going to kind of play guesswork, I don't know a whole lot about the program, but is part of that job like finding the foster families for those kids?
Yes, ma'am. Mm-hmm.
And I've got like a series of questions about foster families. So I feel like that's kind of always like a hard thing to find. Has that been a increase or decrease in foster families over, the last few years? Is where are we at right now?
So I can tell you that in my 21 years of working in Indian child welfare, there has always been an absolute need for more Indian foster families. And that's just not an issue that we face in Okmulgee, Oklahoma. That's an issue that every tribe faces across the nation. As I speak to other tribal child welfare directors, we all have the same issue within our programs, is that we have to have more foster parents. We need foster parents. There's not enough.
How are you guys getting, what are some of the ways you have to get creative to find them, and what are some of the barriers to finding them?
So we do a lot of community outreach. We set up resource booths at stomp dances, wild onion dinners, community events, and we also partner with DHS and do some recruitment activities with them. We host trainings and do events to raise awareness. And of course, during this global pandemic, we've had to use social media to recruit, as well as our television commercials that ran through the state of Oklahoma.
I've seen you guys on TV.
Yeah. Actively, we've got to be creative and think outside of the box and do everything we can to engage with our communities and our citizens, and hope they'll recognize the need.
Okay. Is there any, since we're on the topic, it's always a good time to plug, if anybody is thinking about, being a foster, family, what they should do, who they should contact. You want to just give them some info?
Absolutely. Thank you. So please call us. I can't stress you the need. It is our job as a nation to stand up and protect our most vulnerable citizens, our abused and neglected children. So if you're interested in being a foster parent, please call us, 918-732-7869. And you can ask to speak with Reagan Osborne or Robin Wins. And again, we're teleworking right now, so they might have to call you back, but please leave your name and number, and they will respond to you immediately. We are doing everything we can to recruit as many foster homes as we can. So please hear our call, please.
Okay. All right. Awesome. I've seen people talking about it on social media, so I'm assuming that's great. I've seen people encouraging other folks to, if you can have a kid come to your house, then definitely try to be that kind of support. Is the tribe working towards any major improvements or increased capacity when it comes to working with in the post SCOTUS opinion era here? Is there any plans to increase staff or do more in that department of children and family services?
Yes, so definitely. As I mentioned before, we've been planning this since 2017. We do have strategic plan going on. It hasn't been finalized and approved yet, but we do recognize that we are going to have to grow, and we're going to have to grow quickly. And in addition to obtaining the qualified needed staff that we have to provide the services that we can to our families, we're also going to have to train them. So we recognize that there is going to be some building that needs to be taking place, but we're ready. We're ready to take this on. We're excited about this opportunity. We're so excited about the favorable opinion that came down, and we're ready to move this forward. my intent is for us to be the most trauma-informed, responsive Indian child welfare team that we can be. So we're looking forward. We're ready to step up to the challenge. It's going to take us some time to get there, but we will get there. We will.
Awesome. That's great news. I'm trying to envision, like, this legislation seemed like it was pretty imperative to get in place. Like, there was kind of some urgency to it. Do you guys have any kind of feel as to whether or not there'll ever be a period where we don't have these intergovernmental agreements with the state of Oklahoma? Or is this the kind of standard for the operation everywhere? I mean,
my intent, and that I've said this multiple times in multiple meetings, is we'll get there. This agreement will be dissolved. We will get there, but we're going to need a lot of support to do it. As I mentioned, so our tribal code reads that, and in order for a child to be placed in one of our foster homes or in our care for more than 24 hours, they have to be licensed by us. So, and I don't know if I mentioned the number, but we have 14 foster homes. So,
wow.
Yeah, and the fact
many.
that's not, and the fact that there's potentially 863 Indian children on our reservation that are in need of foster homes is huge. So we have to make sure that we have the homes that can care for these children first and foremost. So of course we're actively recruiting for foster homes, but there is, our intent is to have this agreement dissolved at some point in the future.
Awesome. Well, is there anything I've left out? Anything important we should add that people need to know about? Any highlights I've missed that you'd like to leave them with? Any closing thoughts?
I don't think so. I appreciate the time that you and the opportunity to come and visit about this. I know there's been lots of discussion lately, and again, if there is one thing that I can leave you with, it's please, if you are interested in becoming a foster home, please reach out to us. There are other ways that you could help too. If you can't make the commitment to be a full-time foster parent, then maybe you could provide respite for us. Maybe you could, 1 weekend a month or 1 weekend every 6 months, you'd be willing to be a respite care provider for some of our foster homes so they could take the weekend off. There are a lot of different avenues that we can explore if you're willing to help. But we need you. We need all of our citizens to step up and to help us support our children.
Well, thank you, Kimee. That's some really great information. I hope we get a good positive response, and we'll just keep pubbing it out there as much as we can. Appreciate it.
Thank you so much. All right. You take care.